What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and life coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, but more importantly, those quiet little stories up here that we tell ourselves. You can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online, on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. Hello, everybody, again. I'm so excited. I love to be here with you this week. I can't wait to tell you all about my special guest, Celeste. Hi, Celeste, waiting in the wings.
Hello.
And before we get started, I love stories. My book's about stories. We were just talking about my book before we came on, Tell a New Story. And I love helping people just uncover what are those stories? Because a lot of times, the stories that we tell ourselves about the things in life that we wish didn't happen, right? The bad things in life, the things that we feel like are just too awful to share are where our gems lie, our gems of wisdom, our real strength. And when we can realize that we don't have to keep being those circumstances, we're not our circumstances, we're so much more than that. And that's what we're going to talk about today here with Celeste. And before we get jumping in, I want to read you her bio because it's super powerful. She's done so many incredible things. So, Celeste Mergens, she's an author, a thought leader, and a change maker. She's been featured in Oprah's O Magazine, Forbes, and Stanford's Social Innovation Review. She is the founder of Days for Girls, a global award winning organization champion women's health and menstrual health equity. I love that. Days for Girls was named by the Huffington Post as the next tier organization. Oh, I'm sorry, the next 10 organization, my eyeballs, posed to change the world in the next decade and has reached more than 3 million women and girls in 145 countries. That's so impressive. She's typically averaging 52 speaking events a year. Wow. Celeste is a sought after professional speaker and consultant. She was awarded the AARP Purpose Prize, Conscious Company Global Impact Entrepreneur, Top 10 Women, 2019 Global Washington Global Hero, and Women's Economic Forum's Woman of the Decade. Not the year, the decade. Hello and welcome, Celeste.
So good to be with you.
It's so good to have you on the show. I love all these things that you do, and the praise has been amazing. And your new book is just powerful, and I know you're going all around talking about it with everybody. Tell us,
Mhm.
what was the inspiration behind that? What caused you to dive into this work? Because it's so very specific, and yet it has such a global appeal.
Oh, great question. It actually kind of kept calling to me, if you will, because I would get home from being with people all over the world and want to share with everyone, this happened and this is what they did. And can you believe this was such an amazing witness what happens when we all come together and the power of we to change things. And sometimes I couldn't even go into all the details for time's sake. So I kind of had to start writing it so that people could hear quote, quote, the rest of the story. And I actually I wrestled with one piece of this book. It took me 4 years to write it. I wrote it on planes and in between other things I was doing. and I wanted to write it without myself in the book. And then came the day that I shared it with the friends with a preface that was about an early experience I had when I was 5 that was a huge aha. And my friend wrote an email in response to reading it the first time and said, call me. And I said, yes. And she said, you can't do this. You cannot write this compelling story of your life and then go dot, 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 Kenya. You don't get to do that.
Aren't friends the best when they can tell us that stuff?
Right? And I really wrestled. I did not want to be showing up in this book, but in the end, often people that write are saying that that part just really changed their life. So sometimes when we tell our story with authenticity and sincerity and are vulnerable, that really is what people need to hear. And I honestly didn't want to, for a lot of reasons. I didn't
Yeah.
want it to be about me. And
Get
as
it.
it was about to come out, I was like, ground control to Major Tom. What have I done? I'm floating in space and the whole world will have access to these
Yes.
personal things about
It's
me.
scary. It's scary. I remember that moment too. And there isn't a single other person who's ever written a book. I don't care how many letters you have after your name that does not feel that way. You feel like you're standing there naked, you know?
Yes.
And I oftentimes would feel that way about certain songs that I wrote because they were like the deepest depths of what I couldn't say, I could sing, right? And so
Mhm.
it's like this vulnerability. But I love that friend that told you you have to do that because that is what makes it real. That is what it makes it relatable. That is what makes it true. And it goes from when it comes from your heart, it goes directly into somebody else's heart.
Mm. Well said.
So I love that. That's really, really beautiful. Tell us a little bit more. You were just started to tell me a story about this aha moment you had as a 5 year
Mhm.
old girl. Share that story with my listeners, if you will. It's so moving.
Our family moved a lot for no reason except my father was always looking for the green grass on another side of the fence and and instability in the family. And so we moved 32 times before I was 13. And one of
Wow.
those moments when we were just in between without a home was when I was about 5 years old. We were at a state park at the moment, and I was walking along a path and this little dog walked into view. And when I looked up, the leash led to a woman staring at me. She had half-eaten apple in her hand. She threw it into the dumpster where we happened to be near. And I watched it hit, arc towards the bin. And then I heard it hit the bottom. And I'm like, could I climb in there and get back out? And had just decided I couldn't when I realized she was looking me up and down. And she asked me, where are your shoes, girl? And I said, I'm toughening my feet. And I remember what I responded because it was one of those moments. I used to think of her as Cruella de Vil, like the villainess. I
Yeah,
used to,
exactly.
I played it over and over because it was just one of those moments when you just feel a little wounded by it, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't get it out of your
Mm-hmm.
mind. And
Mm-hmm.
and yet, about 6 years ago or so, I finally realized this was one of the life-changing pivotal moments of my life because here's what happened. In that moment, it was like a mirror turned around and I could see what she saw when she looked at me. I could see that she thought of me as dirty and unkempt and small. And this whole feeling welled up. I am not from here. I am not what you see. And then just this whispering of, are you the homeless girl?
Oh,
Are you the hungry girl or are you something more? And
wow.
and that moment, who gets that? Who gets to be 5 and have a question like that come to them? And that moment sealed for me that we are not our circumstances. We
Mm.
are not that is not who we are. It shapes us and allows us opportunities to choose and to build strength. And that moment shaped the way I do development in the world because for me it's not we need to come to the rescue. Instead, it's ooh, what can we do together? You have infinite possibilities and you know the wisdom of what's happening for you. What can we do together? And that came from that Apple moment. Who would have guessed?
That is unbelievable. I had full body chills when you were telling me that story because And who, I love what you said, who gets to have that moment when you're 5 years old? Who gets to ask that question to themselves when they're five? Who's mature enough when they're five to understand that? And it's like this, I'm going to dare to call it a God whisper, right?
Yes,
You
I
know,
think so.
I had a gal who was in my class and she called a lot of things God whispers. That was a God whisper, right? Like,
Mhm.
wow, a changing moment, but you were able to acknowledge it and embrace it and hold it. And sometimes when we look back on stuff like that, especially when we're in the midst of writing a book, everything just seems so clear. The path that we were on all of a sudden is like laid out. It's like the Wizard of Oz path, right?
True. Yeah.
But the hard part that I always tell my clients, it's hard sometimes to see it when you're on it,
Oh, 100%. It took me 40 years.
right?
More than to go, oh wait, that was a good thing. And that and the thing is sometimes we are in the middle of a miracle and we don't know it yet. So
Yeah.
I kind of decided, why not assume everything's a miracle? Why not? And then
Well,
to get
yes.
curious about how.
Yes, I quote that in my book. You can look at life as if nothing's a miracle, or you can look at life as if everything's a miracle. And
Right?
why not?
Einstein.
Right? Einstein. Why not
Mm,
me? Why not a miracle? Because it does, it shapes everything in your life. And we could go into the science behind that, but it's all about that mindset. Like, where does that mindset, right? Where does it come from? How do you adopt it? How do you get it if you don't have it? And how do you know if you don't have it, right?
mhm. Because you get to decide if you live in a friendly universe or not. You
Yeah.
get to decide if you're loved or not. You get to decide every morning, am I held or am I not?
Mhm.
And when bad things are happening, am I held? Mm, I'm probably going to be okay. And sometimes, honestly, all along the path, there were moments that didn't feel that way at all, right?
Yeah.
100%
Yes.
after that moment, at all. And looking back, I can see the beauty in the things that gave me so much strength and and gave me a chance to choose, was I going to use it for good or was I going to allow it to destroy me? And that is amazing because it leaves you with strength to face other things.
It sure does. It's so beautiful the way you sum that up. I love that. I talk a lot about choice in my book, right? Because until you
Mhm.
realize, all these things happen to me in my life as well. We all have things happen in our lives that we wish didn't happen, right? But it's what
Mhm.
you do with it after that. And I realized that, okay, I can't change those things that happen, right? We're not saying that. We're not saying we can change those.
No.
But what we can do is we can decide, like you said, it's choice. And I think people forget or they give away their power to choose to say, hey, wait a second. Yeah, do I like that stuff? No, I don't like it. But here's what I'm going to do about it. Here's what I'm
Mhm.
going to do to better my life because of it and other people around me. And I feel like that's where your why comes from. That's where your purpose comes from. How was that
Mhm.
a factor for you?
Mhm. Absolutely. And honestly, so imagine being a young girl who was unsafe in an environment that was unsafe in a whole lot of obstacles, right, to overcome. FYI, stubborn girl, it kept me out of trouble. I had to survive. That's
But your
my
feet were tough.
interpretation
That's
of
the good news. So you could run
it.
fast.
Right. And the truth is that I went on to found a global nonprofit that really leans in to help girls have their strength, know their value, know that they can say no to being assaulted, know that their worth is tied not to the things that happened or their circumstances, but to all the days they get to choose. That's why my book's called The Power of Days. Um, and
Mm.
and that woke me up at 4:30 in the morning every morning and and that passion, I can't help but say, has some pretty strong roots in being someone who knows what it's like to not have that safety. And so it wakes me up in the morning just excited to help others have it. And that, even though I wouldn't choose the things that happened, I would choose the gifts that came of it.
That's really, really beautiful. I love that because I think sometimes it's hard for people to see the gifts, but like we were saying before, that's where your strength lies, right? And it's getting
Mhm.
in there. I love to, in my book, I talk about polishing your pearls, right? You sometimes life, never mind the lemons, you get thrown, you're getting thrown some slimy oysters, right? And you have to roll your sleeves up. You got to get in there through the mire and the muck, and you got to get in there and find it. And even when you do find it, it's not really great. You got to polish that thing up. So that's polishing your pearls, right? And I
I
wouldn't
love
have
that.
an album full of songs that I wrote about some of the devastating moments in my life. Um,
Mm.
because that's where you can take something and make something beautiful out of something that was handed to you that was less than beautiful, that you really didn't know what to do with, right?
So excited to read your book.
I'm excited to read yours. I love where your title came from, The Power of Days, because I was wondering. And isn't it such a thing? Think about the cumulative power of days when you break it down to days, right? It gives
Mhm.
you so much more hope that, wow, I've got all these days. And in that day, I can make all these decisions, right? I saw a quote the other day. We make a ridiculous amount of decisions in one day, like 85 or something. We're always making decisions. So
Mhm.
I love that. You're giving those girls back the power of the
Yes.
days, the power to choose, right?
And all of us. Yes. It's good. Lots and lots of proof of exactly what you're talking about. And also the truth that when we do come together, amazing things that we think can't change will change. This takes on one of the world's greatest taboos. Let's be
Mm,
honest, we talk about anything but menstruation if given a choice, and that's true all
exactly.
over the world. And so, how do you get people to talk about it, change it, have the education and resources when no one wants to even talk about it? And this is the journey of proof that it's the power of people coming together. Amazing things happen when we decide and when we come together.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful statement. When we come together with this unified cause to better
Mhm.
the world, make it a better place. And then you've distilled it down even, let's make it a better place for women, for girls, more equity. Talk about a little bit about the how did you get into, and I love that you call yourself a taboo breaker because I think that's fabulous. Um and how did you get so specific, so granular? How did that just hit such a, I'm sure you've got a story behind how you started to
Oh,
support that.
it was amazing. So you can imagine, as someone who survived poverty as a child and hunger and all the other things that went with it, how much it meant to have the gift of being invited to Kenya, helping people have access to education in a really remote rural area, and then being introduced to an orphanage. I was like, no, I think it'll break my heart. But I also believe in saying yes. So ended up there and really focused on sustainable solutions they could count on month after month, and had been helping them about 18 months
Mhm.
when post-election violence had broken out in Kenya. 500,000 people were displaced because of an election people didn't trust the results of. 500,000 people.
Wow.
And this orphanage went from 420 to a reported over 1,400. And so we were getting calls for they need food. Well, you know why that struck me so hard. So we did fundraisers, we did things to help. And then came the day an actual call came, and the headmaster said, we've been out of food for 2 days. We need help. And that really hurt because I know how much it hurts to not be able to even focus because every thought tracks back to food.
Yeah.
I wanted nothing more than to help, and I was pleading for a solution, any kind of idea for how to solve the need they had for resources to be able to send them. Nothing came to me. And then I woke up at 2:30 in the morning with it going through my head. Have you asked what the girls are doing for feminine hygiene? I'm like, ran to the computer to ask, got an immediate, unexpected answer. There weren't smartphones everywhere back then. And the answer, this was 2008, and the answer was nothing. They wait in their room. So they were sitting in on pieces of cardboard for days.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
we were able to raise money for food and for disposable single-use pads, but I knew because of my experiences, what are they going to do next month?
Mhm.
And if we're able to send enough for food, but not more for pads, if you have to choose between food and pads, food wins and should. So how do we provide something they could count on month after month? So we were returning to Kenya in just 3.5 weeks, and we were able to make, design, and then create 500 washable menstrual kits in just that amount of time with phenomenal volunteers coming together. So here's what happened. We get there, we have 8 tremendously enormous green duffels filled with hundreds and hundreds of pads. And we get there, we talk to them about what a period is. We talk with them about how important their health and wellness and days are. And then they get their kits and they are cheering. Their cheers are echoing off the roofs. They're dancing with them. And I was at the door and I got the privilege of giving them hugs as they came out. And my husband snapped a photo of this moment. The girls were the very first girls to come out. One of them said, "Thank you so much, because before you came, we had to let them use us if we wanted to leave the room and go to class." And they're all nodding their heads, about 10 girls. And I'm going, "Oh, please tell me that doesn't mean what I fear it means." And I couldn't even listen because the echoes and cheers and 250 more girls coming in. And I asked them, "Please be here when I come out so I can hear what you have to say. I really want to hear." And they confirmed they were being exploited in exchange for a single disposable pad.
Oh my
And that
gosh.
was the moment Days for Girls was born.
Oh, full body chill. That is unbelievable. Wow. We're going to break right now because I think it's a perfect moment for everybody to hang on that note because it's a lot to take in. And we'll be right back with Celeste. Don't go anywhere, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live for the Good. I'm here with Celeste. We are having the most incredible conversation. And even between the show where you can't hear us, our conversation goes on because there's so much to talk about. Let's finish. I know they were hanging on where we left off. And what a beautiful thing was that you created and how you didn't even realize the impact. How has that gone on? This was back in 2008. So much time has passed. We didn't even know what disposable things were. I mean, like reusable. I'm sorry, we're so used to disposable. We didn't know what a reusable, washable thing. So where are we now? Where did that take you to? What did that launch for you?
Oh, it's been incredible. People did the impossible. They came in to join and volunteer and talk to complete strangers about periods as they built an awareness all around the globe and a response. Today, Dates for Girls has reached more than 3.2 million in 145 countries because of
Wow.
volunteers coming together over the impossible. And then beautifully, local leaders all over the world have been doing Days for Girls enterprises, advocacy with governments and with agencies. And today it's pretty well known. When Days for Girls started, no one was talking about this. So few. People questioned me and said, "No, this isn't true." One friend about a year ago said, "Celeste, to be honest, we thought you were crazy." People did not talk about this, and they didn't believe it could be true that people would go without. And the truth is, 145 countries includes the United States, includes places where you'd like, "Oh, they're not going without." But if you have to choose between fuel in your gas tank for your next job interview and a pad, fuel wins.
Yeah.
And so this is an issue all over the world, even in your backyard. And the beautiful thing is it's become a global movement today, far not just Days for Girls, but agencies and programs all over the world acknowledging this as an important human right.
Yes. Amen. I love that because it is not something people want to always talk about, right?
Mhm.
But so a lot of things like that in our world, mental health was one of those things too that nobody, like in my mom's generation, my dad's they didn't talk about that. You didn't get a therapist, right? Now we're much more open. So all it takes is one person, and you're always going to get called the crazy one when you're out on that cutting edge, when you're out there doing something that nobody else did before. That's just what people say because they don't know what to do with it. But when we believe so deeply in our hearts, you had to believe something on such a bigger scale. What was that? You want to share that with us? Did you have a little personal mantra that you say to yourself? What did you have to believe to create that?
Well, I believe that if you have the vision, I had the why, hearing the girls themselves, right?
Oh,
And you
yeah,
invite people to join you. Don't tell people what to do because none of us like being told what to do, but invite people to join you.
yeah,
It creates a wave. And for me also to hold a vision of what you hope to be possible. For me, that was every girl, everywhere, period. Every person that has a period having what they need and knowing what it is and celebrating instead of being vilified or ostracized. And and so people said at the beginning, that's ridiculous. That can't happen. But it's like it's just one person at a time. And it's enough of us reaching enough one persons that it happens. And so if you have a really clear vision and reverse engineer, what did it take us to reach everyone? What did we do? Who did we talk to? And reverse engineer it back to today, I take one step.
I love that. Today I take one step because I think people who want to follow their dreams, right? I love that. Um, they they just want to get to the end. They want to just jump in. They want to do. They overwhelm themselves. I feel like, and like even with you, it's one person, one step at a time. When I have a new client come on, we talk about baby steps. What's one little tiny baby step? Why? Because that's what accumulates. It's never one big, huge. It's usually all these little things when you were talking about reverse engineering it, all these little baby steps in the right direction that ultimately lead you to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And here's the best part about what you just said. It can be the wrong direction. As long as you learn from that, you can fail forward. As long as you can
Yeah,
learn from that, it could be a little rubber band pulling you back and giving you the next supercharge to the next correct version, because every step is a step for learning or advancement. And both of those are good.
absolutely. There's no failure. And I once heard it called a detour in the right direction. You think you're going one way, right? And like
I love that.
something gets in the way and it's a detour in the right direction. I want to say that was a Gabby Bernstein thing. And I love that because it's always going to lead you if you believe deep enough and you know that today you can take one step, every little step is going to lead you there right to where you need to be, right where you're meant to be. Why do you know that? Because you are, because that's where you are and that's what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Truly, even when it looks really, really dismal. And that's really my life and Days for Girls and why this book shows that. I get a lot of letters, several a week, and messages and that are pointing that out, that they didn't expect to find proof of that, but that's really what it is. It's hope that we really can change things. We really can be the engines for the places we want to go and the things we want to see and experience. We really can.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And people, tend to think that hope's not a strategy, but I think it is. You know,
Mhm.
I think it is. I think hope's always a strategy because the more hope that is out there, it just creates, like you said before, it's this wave of creation. And when you invite all these people to join you, it's this synchronistic thing that starts happening and it becomes a bigger movement than you or I separately could ever be.
Absolutely. And don't you think there's power in that invitation? Here's what I mean by that. It's easy when you're trying to build something that make it about you. I see that this is what we should do and look how great it's going so far. Look at me or look at our company kind of thing. But that's not where a movement comes from. A movement
Mm.
comes from the willingness to invite someone, the willingness to say, is this a match for you? This is what would you like? You're invited to be part of this change. And also holding yourself open, even to a new client, if the answer is no, then you're like, great, because there are a lot of connections in this world. If the answer is no, I really care about the symphony, great, because I care about the arts too. I love that you're finding the place you want to stand. If your energy is about next, not in a way of, well, I'm crossing you out, but in a way of thank you for choosing where you're passionate. I'm just looking for my tribe. Like I'm just looking for the people who feel the same way.
Yeah.
And if you make it about the invitation to be connected to the impact, and you make all the stories and communication about the impact and the power of what we
Yeah.
can do together, now you have a movement because it's not about, look at me. Do you want to be in the in crowd, for lack of a better thing off the top of my head? But rather, it's about, this is what we could do together. Do you want to
Mm.
build that? And have this openness to allow it to flow. Yes or no, it doesn't matter. This is the river I'm in right now. And wow, the water's warm. Come on in.
Wow, and that's downstream. That's so downstream. You don't I think we spent a lot of time paddling upstream, which is what you were describing to start with. And then it was like you got in the canoe and now we're going downstream. And whoever wants to come, Come on, jump in your canoe. Let's go. That's the movement, right?
Mm.
And I love that you give people permission not to come if it's not their thing, or to jump in the boat and let's do this together because truly, truly, I love what you said because it really is only one person's action to begin the movement. And then it takes on really a life of its own.
Mhm.
That's a really beautiful thing. So I just love everything you've created. And I know everybody listening is going to go, where can they find your book? Tell them that first.
Anywhere books are sold, actually. So you can
Good.
find them at Barnes& and Noble, online. You can, um, many independent bookstores, yay, independent bookstores,
Yay.
and yeah, it's available. It is just, when you're writing it, as you were saying earlier, you hope someone will find interest in it. You hope there's some value in this. And then you have that terrifying moment. Oh no, people are going to find this.
Right. It's the catch. Wait, I should go buy it off all the shelves right now.
Right? And it became a #1 Amazon bestseller by day
Uh-huh.
2, #1 audio bestseller by day 5. It was just nominated for the Pacific Northwest Book Award, and it's almost sold out of the first edition. So I'm so grateful for the times we say yes to showing up, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And it's been such a joy to have so many people be such supporters and join in the conversation, just like Days for Girls Building. I feel like this book took a village to launch into the world. And wow, what an adventure.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love it. And the awareness, just the awareness. There's still so many
Mhm,
people who need to become aware about the issues, right? In the
mhm,
world. And it's a beautiful thing when you can just expand that out and you have all these other people that joined your movement. And it just becomes this synchronistic thing. Like when I first launched my book, I imagined it had wings and that it was going to go out, and
mm,
fly across the world and find the people who needed it, touch the lives of the people who need to hear our message just at that perfect moment. And
mhm.
that's
I
that
had the same vision, only not wings, dandelion wisp.
really.
Like just that
Oh
the
yeah.
wisp going, and that we are not the wind. It will reach who it needs to reach,
I
right?
love that, like a wish puff. Yes. Which goes along with your hope movement, right? It's like
Mhm,
spreading that out and it does. It falls everywhere where it needs to be, and whoever needs to hear it will hear it and you're creating that global awareness and
mhm.
the awakening and I love the equality piece too.
Absolutely. So important.
So
What if
important.
we all realized that if we can help others people thrive, it lifts all of us? What if we all realize there's so much more that we have in common than what divides us? And even
Yeah.
when it looks like we're so different, our opinions are so different, there's a way to honor, respect, and connect to each other. And that has tremendous power.
Yeah.
There's a experience I had while on the road. I filled 3 passports with proof that we have more in common I was in Nepal. I was walking along this precarious path, and I say that because it's a 1,000-foot drop. I'm not exaggerating. I
Woo.
have photographic evidence. I was trying to distract myself from the drop, and I told the woman
Oh,
in front of me who speaks English, that I said, "These mountains are so beautiful. In the sun, they would kind of look purple, then beige, then gray, then," and
wow.
and she said, "Oh no, these are not mountains. These are hills." I live in the Pacific Northwest where Mount Rainier and Mount Hood is, and I'm telling you, by every definition I had ever seen, these were for sure mountains. And she goes, "Nope, these are hills." They,
Hills.
I know. If photos, like I said, so imagine it's a few days later. I'm flying out, and out of my window, I took this photo out of the plane window of the clouds, and below the clouds were these hills I was walking on, and above the cloud layer were the Sisters of Everest.
Oh,
When you live in the neighborhood of the
wow.
Sisters of Everest, these are not mountains. Those are mountains,
That's amazing.
right? And
You got it at that point, right?
yes, because we all see different mountains. Thank
Mm.
goodness. we all have our own way to see based on our experiences, our talents, our gifts, our vision. We all see different mountains. If we didn't, this world would be a very flat place.
Yes.
Thankfully, we all bring different talents and visions, but when we silo each other, I hate this. Do you hate this? I don't want this. Do you not want this? I only like this. Do you like this? Then
Mm,
we don't get to share that wisdom and insight, and we miss mountains. I
wow.
If I had a magic wand, this would be one of the things I would ask for first, that we could respect and be curious and lean in to the strengths that are in our differences. It's
Yeah.
okay.
I love that. I'm writing down notes because you're saying you're dropping all these beautiful, beautiful gems of wisdom and having perspective. Like, it took you to be up in that plane to get perspective and understand what she was saying, right? We laughed
Absolutely.
about it, right? Because it seemed ridiculous that those were hills, but to her, they were hills, right? I mean,
Isn't that amazing?
it's so crazy. But that is such a great analogy. It's just a metaphor for the rest of life, right? And that's what we do. Only because I let people off the hook because our minds are designed that way, right? That's why my show is called Look for the Good, because our minds are so perfectly predisposed to look for what is wrong. It's just trying to keep us safe, right? So,
Right.
but I love the choice. We have a choice. Do you want to live like that? Because that's no fun and that causes conflict. And that's
Mhm.
really no way to go through life. You're not starting a global movement with that. Let's look for the good. Let's try to
Exactly.
see through somebody else's lens. Let's try to see what her mountain really is, and understand each other. And I love what you said, the word curiosity, because I talk a lot about that in my book as well. Let's get curious.
Yeah. Wow. We have a lot in common.
We really do.
So, well, and what
Mm,
you're saying about that part of our brain that's keeping us safe, that's real, right? That
it's
the
real.
amygdala part of our brain is our first responder. It's going along, watch it, watch out, staying ahead of us. And
Yep.
and thank goodness, or we'd be exhausted just watching out, right?
Right? So true.
However, I call it the lizard brain
Yeah.
because it's already ready to scurry under a rock and take us under there. And you can experience a lot under the rocks between the cracks. And so it's good that we have it and being aware of that. This is actually, I have a technique that I call mind the gap. Can I share it
Mm.
with you?
Oh, I would love to hear it. But you know what? Everybody's hanging on that word. When we come back, Celeste is going to share it with us. So hold tight after a word from a sponsor. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. This conversation is so compelling with Celeste, and we want to hear all about your technique. You're just telling us the mind the gap technique. Everybody's like, yes, give us that technique. We would love to hear that.
Well, thank you. There is this moment between when something happens to us and when we interpret what it means. And it's just a
Mm,
heartbeat, it's just a blip. And in that instance, I would argue most of the time it's our first responder, the lizard brain that's responding, right?
it's
But
your
we're not even
lizard.
aware of
Mm-hmm.
that, right? We're not
Mm-hmm.
even aware that that's our first responder unless we choose to be aware of that. So in that moment, if we open that moment up just an extra heartbeat, be aware when something happens. Okay, wait a minute. What am I going to choose to interpret this with? Because here's the truth. If you are at a grocery store and you see a good friend and you wave to them and it looks like they're looking right at you, but they turn their cart and keep going, your lizard brain will start saying, I knew it. I should have invited her to the dinner too. Now she's not going to talk. This is terrible. Or this whole rabbit hole experience that happens. We go swooshing down. And then if we choose to have that whole emotional response in response to the thoughts we have, instead of holding it open and going, that's really interesting. She doesn't usually react that way. I wonder if something's wrong. Hope she's okay. I'll have to take a note to check in with her later. It is just as likely that she was just thinking about what she's making for dinner and didn't even see you, even though it looked like she was looking right at you. But our brain convinces us otherwise. Even if she's mad at us, if we choose our energy to go to, I'm curious. I actually use that sound inside or aloud, depending on the circumstances. That curious sound. Then if we do that, now our energy can be about that moment of pure connection. It won't come with this little ziggy, little anxious feeling interrupting this connection with them, that you can choose to have a brilliant reconnection. Even if there was a problem, we are so much better off not adding the momentum of negativity to it, right?
Yeah,
And in my experience over and over again, it really isn't the worst case scenario. Can I share an example from, actually,
please.
it isn't in the book, it happened after the book.
Ooh,
So I
love it.
ran into a friend at a conference and she said, Celeste, I got your book. She has a really big smile on her face. She's standing by like 2 or 3 other people. And I said, oh, thank you. That's wonderful. She goes, yeah, I started reading it. I'm like, that's amazing. And she just stood there smiling at me and didn't say anything else. So my brain's like, oh shoot, she doesn't like it at all, because you know that whole don't say
Filling in the
anything.
gaps. It has to fill
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
gaps for you.
So I literally did this. I held that thought open for just another heartbeat and said, Celeste Angela Mergens, you get to choose. You can spend the next few hours going, oh no, she didn't like it. Who else doesn't like it? Or you can say, well, that's interesting. I wonder what she thought. The truth is none of my business what she thinks. Everybody gets to respond in their own way. And I'm just going to focus on the fact that I'm so grateful she got the book. And she said she got the book in front of other people. That's amazing. And I'm going to focus there. And I have to admit, a few times that feeling of, oh, came up. And every time I answered, open that little gap. And, I'm just grateful she got it. And I like her so much. Focused on that. It's like 6 hours later during a break in the conference we were at. And she walks up to me with another woman and says, Celeste, meet Anne. And this is the woman I told you about whose book is so good. I could have spent 6 hours doing the rabbit hole, stab
Mhm.
yourself in the heart dance. And, and I'm so glad I chose to open it up.
That is so awesome. I mean, I can't just I tell a story in my book and it's this exact thing. It's like, why do we do that? I love what you said. I'm cracking up. Rabbit hole, stab yourself in the heart dance. It's like, why do we do that?
Well, and
Right?
here's the best part. You're so right. And we do. And here's the why. Because our amazing brain is trying to keep us safe. So it's trying to
Mr.
see the
Lizard.
worst case scenario, right? And get us safe. And thank you, brain. But, buckle up. Don't touch the radio. My friend likes to tell, don't touch the radio. You're along for the ride. You can't touch the steering wheel, but you're here. I see you here. And I am going to be doing this drive and making the choices. And I'm turning up the channel that works for me, and that's usually gratitude. But I've
Yeah.
also noticed this. Here's where the like moment came for me. If we can reopen that moment in the now, what if we go back to past experiences we've had and
Mhm.
open them up and review those? Because a lot of times our lizard brain responded. We never had a chance to choose how we were going to interpret. And this gives you huge energy back, especially if it's traumatic. Do I have time to share with you one example of that for me?
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait.
So I was in middle school. This was one of the moments I was looking for a zing place that still zinged me after years. And it was one of those moments in middle school when I was walking out of the bathroom into the hallway and a couple of people were snickering, and I was like, oh, what's funny? Looking around. And then a girl behind me said, your skirt is tucked into your tights. Mortifying.
Oh,
In middle school, that's the most mortifiable time of our lives.
of course it is. It's the worst. Worst 3 years.
So I scurry back into the bathroom, hide in there, fix it, hide in there until everyone's for sure gone
Gone.
back to class, and felt just, demoralized. And here's the truth. When I open that one back up, I do 3 things. I first pick up more details, then I bring gratitude to it, and then I bring the wisdom of the now. So I literally open it up with my hands like a football,
Really?
score. And I take a deep breath and go, okay, so and see as many of the details as if I'm back there again, the lockers behind the guys snickering, the floor, the checkered floor, the pink tile going into the girls' bathroom, the girl behind me. And I can see it, I can feel it. And then I'm like, what can I be grateful for? Well, I'm really grateful, girl, that I don't remember your name, told me it was that way, or would have walked around all day like that. So thank you, girl, that I don't now know now for doing that. And as far as the wisdom of now I know that if I just went, "Are you kidding?" and pulled it out and patted my bum and then went, "Wow, I am so glad you told me. Thank you." Can you believe that? That really is so funny. I could have walked around all day like that. "Hey, see you next time," and
Right?
walked on. They would have been in awe of my confidence. In awe,
Totally. Such
right?
strength, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And right now, I know that to be true. And right now,
Yeah.
I have like a 80% chance I might respond that way. And
I would've been like,
right
"Look at
now,
my underwear, aren't they cute?"
exactly. We can give ourselves the lost energy that, let's be honest, gets trapped
Yeah.
to those
Give
kind
it
of
back.
experiences,
Mhm.
and then close it back up and, hmm, right? We can do
Mm.
that. It's so powerful.
It's so powerful because you're taking your energy back. I love Caroline Mace's work, and she talks a lot about giving your energy away and having these cords. You had a cord connected to that, straight to your self-esteem, right? Your 3rd chakra. And when we can go in there and unravel that stuff and add a little forgiveness, right? We were talking about forgiveness for
Mhm,
yourself, because you responded that way and then you held on to it
mhm,
all these years. And we want to
mhm.
try to, like in my work, when people start realizing these stories, they keep telling themselves, they're like, why did I do that? And then we want to beat ourselves up. No, that's more of the rabbit hole, stab yourself in the heart dance we don't want to do, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to let that go and have compassion because we held on to that for a reason, right? Because our brains thought it was trying to protect us. And every time we felt shame again, it probably went, remember that time? Remember that time?
Mhm, and the
So
best part is we can reinterpret it because it was an
love it.
incorrect interpretation from the wisdom
Yes.
of now. How cool is that?
Exactly. It's so cool that you get to get in there. I call it rewriting your story. You went
Mhm,
in there and you rewrote that story. You were like, you gave it meaning, a different meaning. You gave it perspective. You laughed about it. When we can do all these things, it's sort of like we're getting in there like the groove of a record when it gets stuck in the groove. We're
mhm.
changing that groove so it can no longer get stuck there. We no longer get stuck in those thoughts all the time in our head.
So right.
I
Mhm,
love that. That is so beautiful. Oh my God, I love that. So everybody mind the gap, okay? Let's remember that. And talk a little bit about, as we wrap up here on this beautiful edition of Look for the Good, talk a little bit about forgiveness. Like, what works for you? How do you forgive? Because I feel like a lot of times it's easier for us. I actually wrote a chorus of a song about this. It's
mhm.
easier for us to forgive other people, but it's not so easy for us to forgive ourselves.
Oh, that's so true. So, so true. I have found, and I wish I could say that every time I get right back to the forgiveness, but here's what I know about it. It is so powerful. I had occasion when, my stepfather was use small children for punching bags and
Oh, goodness.
emotionally and verbally as well, better at that. And I would kind of replay back to that replaying of I wouldn't it be wonderful if I had a dad that loved me? Wouldn't it be, you think somehow I could get him to love me? That whole thing that we sometimes can do, especially with a parental figure.
Yeah.
And then one day it came to me, huh, you know what? I actually don't need a dad. I have an amazing family of my own. We're really doing great. I actually don't need a dad. What am I doing? And it was one of those moments of, huh, the whole time. Uh,
Looking
and
for
then
something, right?
right, and then came, so that just recognizing I am enough, and
Mm.
here's what was pivotal to go, actually, I got a lot of strength from that, and I can actually let go. He was probably doing the best he can, and that's none of my business, in the best way, like the 4 agreements. It's none
Yes.
of my business what he thought or why he did it, or I don't have to be make myself safe by interpreting why or what or how I could do something different. It just was, and I'm really good. So I'm okay. I can let go now.
Wow.
Okay, you're not going to believe this, but there are witnesses. 2 days later, a man that I had not seen in 11 years who was a complete no-show for most of my life. And not to be critical, but that's the truth. He calls me and says, "Hey, Celeste, I need to know how to get to your house." And I'm like, "Get to my house?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm coming to your house to visit." "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, where are you?" And he lived in Oregon, 2 states away, or one, both ends, so a state away. He was at the ferry 45 minutes from my house asking for my address. Like, whoa, my kids had
Wow.
not met this father figure.
Really?
They had, and so he shows up at the door. He's got a baseball cap and tennis shoes and a big smile and a fishing pole on his shoulder. Anyone want to go fishing? And my children loved him. They got to see the good parts, the monkey faces he would make and going fishing, and they had this wonderful experience. And later in the day, I was doing dishes. When you have a lot of children, it's endless dishes. And they were going downstairs to watch some home video to see them growing up. And he stood on the other side of the counter from where I was, and he said, "How did you do it?" I said, "How did I do what?" And he said, "Grow up to be the kind of mom you are. How did you do that when we treated you so bad?" And I
Oh,
started to say, I mean, still, who gets to hear that? It was such
oh,
a huge moment. And then he said, "No," I started to say, "You were doing the best you," and he said, "No, do not make excuses for me. I was wrong, and I'm here to try to make up for it." Turns and walks down the stairs. I'm standing there going, "Oh," and here's what's amazing about that moment. It came when I didn't need it anymore. It came when I let go of the attachment to hold grudges or to blame myself or find the fault. It came when I let go and forgave, not an intellectual exercise, but just let go of that cord, let go of that need, let go of the judgment of myself and the whole, let go.
that
That
is beautiful.
no accident. And that is the miracle of forgiveness.
I have a full body chill all the way down to my ankles because that is the power of forgiveness. And the day that you let go and you realized, hey, this made me who I am.
Mhm.
This, you reframed it. He was doing the best he could. But the fact that he came and said that exact thing as you were starting to say out of your lips the story, he was doing the best he could and interrupted you you could have never imagined how amazing that would feel, I bet.
No, nor expected it, right?
It's the
That's the
expectation.
miracle of it.
Yeah,
When
it
you let
is.
go and you don't need it anymore. So how many things in our lives can we let go of? How many things in our lives can we get curious about? How many things in our lives can we just celebrate that we're in the right place at the right time and all the lessons are jewels to us? That is possible.
It is possible. Anything is possible. And I love that quote, and we'll end on this. That Oprah quote, it's in my book. I talk a lot about forgiveness. Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different than it was. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what you did. And the second you let that go, energetically, it heals everybody, as
Amazing.
evidenced by him showing up at your door.
2 days
That's
later. Come on.
that story. There is no, I believe in, there is no coincidences. That's all an energetic response to what you did. And that, people who are listening, you beautiful listeners out there, is the power of you making the choice to decide to change what goes on in here. Never mind out here. What to do with it when the stuff happens. Because let's face it, stuff's going to hit the fan. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it to make your life better? Celeste, this has been the most incredible conversation. I absolutely love this. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
It's been a delight.
It's been really lovely. You gave me so many chills. I think I'm going to have to go get a hot cup of tea now because it was so moving and so many aha moments. And tell us your website so that they can go find out more about you if they're interested in inviting themselves into your beautiful movement. Tell them where to find you.
CelesteMergens.com has the links to the book, to Days for Girls, to how to connect with me. You can find Days for Girls by Googling it. And I would love to hear from any of them, especially their response to the book if they get to read it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm going to spell. We love to spell because we're here on video, but sometimes people are on the radio when we first drop this live. So it's
Mhm.
Celeste Mergens, Celeste, Mergens, MERGENS.com. So go to her website. It's beautiful. You can find out all information. You can read so many cool things and stories, and it's just beautiful. Your website is well done. And
Thank you.
you are beautiful, my friend. And I just love this opportunity to talk with you today.
It's been lovely. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. I think we have a whole nother show in here. There's so much more we could talk about. So thank you, everyone. And if you want to know when the good stuff is dropping, what's going on behind the scenes, I'd look for the good, where I drop tips and stuff that you won't hear anywhere else except for my private email list. Go sign up. Go to my website. You can get a free gift on there and sign up at carrierowan.com and click on the podcast button up top. And remember, everybody, as we leave here today, it's never too late to live your best story. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.